If you want to put any kind of decoration on the bottom, now is the time to do it. I'm just going to zap over that with a quick bit of abrasive, and then we'll get on to texturing. It's a really simple method of texturing. I know that you guys have got carvers amongst you, so you'll have the chisels to be able to do it with. And the great thing is, you can't achieve this texture with any kind of machine. It will only work with carving chisels to the degree that we want it to work to anyway. So, I have got I'm just going to sharpen it. I know that I dropped it in that box, so it's got a nick on the end, so very, very quickly just zap that in there. So this is a number 5 gouge. It's quite flat in profile, it's not got a very steep sweep to it at all, and it's one of my favourite chisels is this. I use this for all sorts of things. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to carve slightly diagonally, and I'm just going to leave these little dimples in the surface, so it's like scalloping the surface, a little bit Mousy Thompson style with the furniture. You always leave it scalloped because they make it with an adze. So it's a two-handed chisel. You do not have to use a two-handed chisel, this is just my personal preference. So I've got one hand on the shank of the chisel, and that's always anchored down. I do use my chisels a lot by holding them like a pencil, because a lot of the work I do is very small. Now, I was taught by Michael Painter, who was very traditional, and he always holds the chisels correctly, and he doesn't really understand the need to do that, but he also hasn't done fiddly dragon scales, which sometimes changes your perspective of how to manipulate a chisel. So I do hold it like a pencil a lot, but I've still got two fingers for anchoring this chisel down, because if we just hold it in mid-air with nothing holding it down, you've not got any control over the chisel. So I'm slicing as I cut, and that's what this top hand is doing on the handle of the chisel. It's just twisting as it cuts, and that slices the grain, gives you a much better cut. And I'm watching the grain of the wood all the time. Anybody who's done any planing at all, whether hand planing or machine planing, you will know that if you cut the wood in the wrong direction, it starts to, the plane sort of bounces and you get tear out. It's the same with this. That's why I keep changing direction, because this, even though we've turned this and the grain is running straight through, it's twisting. It's not completely straight. No wood is completely straight, or very few types of wood are completely straight, so you get some kind of twist. So you've got to make sure that if it's starting to tear out, you change the angle of the chisel, and that should help to resolve it. So that's one face done. The reason that I'm using the carving chisel to do this texturing is because the colouring that I'm going to do is, as I've passed round, is just a little bit of highlighting colouring. I'm not wanting to cover completely of you know, filling all the grain or anything like that. We're going to do a little bit of grain filling later on. We just want to have a little bit of a subtle highlight. But what you'll find if you use a rotary burr in a Dremel or anything like that is that you won't get the sharp edges around each kind of dimple that you're carving. It will round them off. So when you come to highlight it, you haven't got that same definition to enable you to highlight it properly. So it will just become a bit patchy. So with carving it, I'm checking my line as well, and if it needs a little bit of adjustment, if we've got it a little bit wrong or roughing gouge has bounced and we've got a bit missing, this is where you can rectify that line and just recut it so that it's correct. Them eaters work. Flipping heck. Went to, where did I go? I went to a club in the middle of summer. It was on hottest day of summer, and it was a scout club, which is like, I don't know, it was like a glorified chicken shed. It was awful. The windows didn't open, and it was just, don't get me wrong, the building itself was fine, but it was just, I think it was 32, no, it was more than that, it was about 35 degrees, and we were just...
Do you want those heaters?
No, it's lovely, no, it's spot on, I'm saying they work really well, but that, working when it's cold, it doesn't bother me too much, but working when it's hot, that was hard work with that. That was a long day. One guy ended up quite poorly with the heat. So, nearly done. And then we can just finish the lid. Now, something that I tend to leave is when I start turning the lid again now, this is obviously jammed in, so it's a really tight fit. You have the temptation to rectify that and make it a perfect fit. I always say to people, I would not rush to do that, because we carve in this wood, we colour in it, you know, even if you're not going to this extent and you're just leaving it as a triangular box, you might be oiling it. There's all sorts of things that we do into it, it's going to move. It might be only fractional, but it will move. And how many of us have made boxes and thought, that's a great fit, is that? Can't wait to take that to the club and show it off. And then the next day, you pick it up and the lid just falls off. You can't make it bigger, but you can make it smaller. So basically, I leave that fit for a few days, and then I will just go around that with some abrasive and reduce the spigot size, and then get your perfect fit. So it's not usable at the moment. That is not a box that you could give to somebody to use, but I know that is going to fit in 3 days' time, no matter what happens to it. If you want to take a little bit off, yeah, fair enough, it's your call, but I don't recommend it. So all I need to do now is just take a little bit more weight out of this lid, because that's going to be quite heavy. So I'm starting with the bow gouge right over the other side of the bed bars and sweeping it round until we get to the centre. And that means that the bevel's rubbing all the way around. If you try and go in too shallow when you start the cut, and this is the same on balls, if you're going too shallow, when you've got sort of sides that are flatter, it'll just dig in and throw your chisel out all the time, every time. So you've got to make sure that you bring that chisel round. So I'll give that a quick zip over with some abrasive. And then I'm going to put a little recess on the other side so that we can do an insert with some metal leaf on. So I'm making sure that I'm keeping that abrasive away from that recessed edge. This is where, if you've made your walls too thin, it's potentially going to crack. What I will do is, if the chuck jaws won't fit that internal recess, which is quite likely because it's a smaller.
35mm.
Yeah, I think I might have just under-egged it. But I have brought, I can swap my jaws in my chuck.
Yes?
Just like they are all the way shut. So very, very carefully open that. I am just using finger and thumb, not cranking it open, and just feeling what the hole is like on that. So that's not quite enough. It's very easy to overdo it. That should do it. The problem that we have with this is that and it's the same with any box that you're turning the lid from. With a flat, we've got a flat recess and we're using dovetail jaws. It's only being held by the outermost surface of those jaws, so these can pop off. So it's exactly the same rules as if you're using the jam chuck. Treat it the same. Be gentle cuts. And it's not that it's not going to cause us. If that came off, yeah, it might hurt. If it were to hit me, it wouldn't even get over to you guys. It's not that. It's just that you'll just wreck your corners. Now I like to dome the top of these ever so slightly, because everything else has been perfectly flat, so I just like to take off a little bit of those corners and just roll them around slightly. Cut my recess, not really too bothered about the size of that because we will make the spigot to fit and we'll be overhanging the insert anyway slightly. It's the cheap way to do it. But if you're thinking of having a go with a bit of gold leaf, you're better off treating it as a separate thing to begin with instead of incorporating it straight into a design. Because if it goes wrong, you can do it again, you can return another piece, it doesn't matter. If it goes wrong and you've incorporated it into the design, you've had it. It is what it is. You've got to then keep trying to rectify it on the piece. Sand that off, and then we can get on with our little bit of colouring on the base. Take care with fingers near those points, and that's our lid pretty much sorted. It needs some more sanding, some more hand sanding around there, but
So you've only made that a couple of millimetres deep.
Pardon?
That recess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all it is a little locating thing, that's all. The actual insert's going to be a little bit larger than that. But if you make this too deep and your spigot's not, and you don't make the spigot deep enough to fill that, you'll have a gluing problem. So it's better off if you make it shallow and you've only got a shallow locating spigot, because then you'll definitely get a good surface for gluing on. I've done them deeper and come across that, and then you're thinking, great, get it filled out. So, colouring, just got to grab a towel, and I'm going to start off just taking off these little bits of grey out off the edge of that. I'm going to start off with some ebonising lacquer. It's a very good base for any sort of colouring that's paint based. It doesn't work if you're trying to stain something, because it seals the timber completely, and it's black, so you're not going to see anything. Your iridescents work very well on a black background, as do your metallics. So that is why I use that. I'll use that lid actually, and then I'm not going to pop It's not a bad idea if you've got the time and the patience, mask that area off, because even as you're spraying and you're moving it around, that's what happened to that one that passed round. It picked up some of the paint from there. So, or even put it, if I got a bit. If you want to speed up shaking tins up, if you've got jaws big enough to fit the tin in, stick it in your chuck and you switch it on low speed, just leave it for 2 minutes, works magic. So I'm going to try and just angle this down slightly, because I'm going to try and avoid getting it on that spigot. Very short, sharp bursts. Don't stand and hold the, yeah. I was shocked. I can't, I assume that most of you will know Phil Irons. Phil put a video on, I think it was Instagram, and he was spraying gloss lacquer on something that he'd done. It was either himself or a student that he was filming. And they were just standing, holding the can, just spraying up and down. And I thought, Phil, you can't put something like that on there. You're known for your finishes. And loads of people were taking the mick out of him for it. So I don't know what that was all about, but it's not how you do it. I learned that in school. So I'm just making sure I've got good coverage. There's a little bit that has oversprayed, which, because I haven't masked it, is expected. But I'm going to be sanding that spigot down anyway to size, so I'm not really too worried. Just a little bit there. Now, because of the type of colouring that we're doing, you don't want to miss anything on this particular type of colouring. If you're covering it with, like properly covering it with your iridescents or your metallics, then it doesn't matter too much if you've missed the odd patch. It won't be as bright on that background, but it will still work. Now what I'm going to do on here, I'm just going to let that dry a bit, and I'm going to show you these three different products. So we've got Chestnut's metallic gold, we've got Jo Sonia's gold, one of the golds. They do about 3 or 4. There's a pale gold, a rich gold, a rose gold, and I think there's another one. So you get to see the difference between these two, and we'll have a play with the gilt cream. I'll tell you right from now, that is my favourite stuff. This gilt cream is ace. There's so many applications for it, it's brilliant. A lot of people have slated Chestnuts, not slated, but they don't rate them as much as Jo Sonia's. In my opinion, you get what you pay for. You get 8 of these, as I've said right at the start, for less than 30 quid. That is £7 for a tube. So there's a big money difference between them. It's £7.20 plus postage. Your gilt cream is expensive. It's from Chestnut. It's something like £10.14. It's £9.50 over there. That's for one pot. So you know, but it's individual choice. I don't think there is an enormous difference between. This is it's not as thick as you'll see. Consistency wise, it's not as thick. And it's not as highly pigmented. The same goes with the iridescents. They don't have quite the same kick, but they're not going to do. They're a fraction of the price, and it's the pigments that are expensive. But when I'm applying it in this way, the difference is only quite small. I think Gary Lowe, for anybody who follows Gary, he uses a lot of chestnut stuff. And he's worked brilliant. He has some fantastic effects from it. So it's kind of is down to budget and your personal preference. Later on, I'm going to do a snowman. I'm going to do some grain filling, and I'm going to use the Hampshire Sheen Gold Embellishing Wax in comparison with the Chestnut Gilt Cream. You cannot use this in as many different ways as the gilt cream. It is just for grain filling. But again, like I said, 10 quid a pot, 20 quid for 8 different colours. So, you know, it's, as I say, it's totally up to you. So that should be about dry. So we'll get rid of our towel, and then we can apply I'm going to start out with the gilt cream and I'm going to move then onto the chestnut and then onto the Jo Sonia's. I'm not going to talk about brushing between. It still gives a good enough comparison between them. The technique we're using anyway, you'll see why I'm not probably talking about anything. Is there any kitchen roll? Pinch a bit of kitchen roll? Or a serviette?
In the first of the day.
Technique that I'm going to be using to apply these finishes is called dry brushing. Bit of kitchen roll is useful when you're using this technique because what we are wanting to do with this is highlight all those little high spots and just bring them out, nice and subtle. So if you have a piece of kitchen towel that's got high spots on it, and what you actually do when you're dry brushing is you're more removing the product from the brush before you start than applying it. So this gilt cream is quite dried out. If yours gets like that, you can reactivate it using some white spirit, just a few drops, leave it overnight. But if you're dry brushing with it, it's actually better if it is dried out. So all I'm doing, just give the brush a bit of a swirl round. And get rid of the sides. There's not a lot on there at all. And then I'm going to start swirling the brush start swirling the brush and actually removing a lot of that product, so that when I apply it on here, it's just going to pick out those high spots. If you have too much product, it'll start to smear you and you'll get brush marks. With the gilt cream, you need to do this and reapply it if you want it a bit brighter. You're going to have to do it sort of 2 or 3 times, because the pigments are very sparkly, but they seem to be a bit translucent. I think they're made from metal leaf ground up. So as I say, you need to do 2 or 3 applications. Make sure you move the brush in different directions. You don't want a stiff brush for this. You don't want a really sort of a super soft brush, because it will flick into the coves, but a bristle brush will push the pigment into the coves a lot, and that's not the result that we're after. So hopefully you can start to see the lights come off of that. There we go. You start to just pick those out. So what I'll do is label underneath which are which, so that you know which we've used. So that is the gilt cream. If it is dry, you can use gilt cream to cover large areas, so like the box lid on the inside, you could cover that with gilt cream, and it's a lot easier to work with than your metal leaf, because it fills any inconsistencies, and it also restart it.